So I'm looking at that going, he just got fouled pretty much at the top of the small square. And you've given a free on the edge of the box. How is that possible? Then he gives 2 penalties that are clearly outside the box, that the momentum brings them inside the box. 3 penalty decisions he got wrong in the first half alone.
I'm not finished yet. It took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other.
So I was saying last Thursday that Kerry-Galway would be the game of the weekend, and I was absolutely right. Putting on Mayo and Dublin, I don't know what they're doing. Sure, Mayo can't beat Dublin, we all know that. So it's now 16 games since they haven't beaten them. But the Galway one, Kerry one looked like a fantastic game. It was a late comeback from Kerry, and there's something about comebacks in the league so far, Colin. Colin Kelly, by the way, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wally, thank you.
So there's something about comebacks. I don't want to bring up Tip's comeback in Drogheda yesterday, which we'll get to in a while. Fermanagh came back 9-3 down against Roscommon. Cavan came back twice against Westmeath. Kerry came back, like I mentioned last week. Laois got 2 goals in injury time to come back. Have we read anything into comebacks, or is this just a pure coincidence? Or maybe a big strong win yesterday might have helped as well.
Maybe that probably played a part in yesterday's comebacks. I don't know about Laois and Roscommon. You know, when you look at Evan O'Carroll's goal, it was a stunning strike. But yesterday, I was at the Louth and Tipperary match yesterday, and definitely the conditions had a huge amount to play in the comeback from Tipperary. So, you know, and you know, we'll probably talk about the sin bin later on of Killian McDade, but obviously, you know, that helped in Kerry's goals also. Yeah,
well, it definitely did. So Killian McDade, we might as well mention it now. He was sin binned on 63 minutes. Anyone who agrees with the sin bin would say this is exactly when the black card didn't work, and this is exactly when the sin bin does work, because you're down to 14 men, Conan, and he ended up in the sin bin for 12 minutes instead of 10.
Yeah, it's obviously a great thing though, because this is when people are going to be cynical, they'll drag you down. So instead of them getting a fresh sub on and you having a free 70 yards out, you now have 14 men for the most important time of the game. But that's when the ref needs to be more honest. Like, you can't 2 minutes out of 10, like that's a big chunk. What's the math?
Well, now from reading about this is that Galway were at fault in a way in that there was 2 minutes of possession. So this kick out might have come out and you're on to 9 minutes 50 seconds and you can't bring on the sub back on until a break in play. So the kick out goes out. Now you're over your 10 minutes. He can't come on. Galway are playing a possession game trying to run down the clock, and they're running down their own. That was my reading of it, Colin, from League Sunday. Whether I don't know if it was yours.
Yeah, like, you know, who's the onus on to make sure the player gets back into play?
Well, the onus on the referee is on the timer. Yeah. But what I would have thought from a management point of view, which you've been in, not with the sin bin, someone in the backroom team has to also have their watch, right? And have some, like, I'm sure management teams are going to learn as they go along.
Well, you know, management teams are that big now. You know, Pádraig Joyce has got an awful lot right since he's taken over as Galway manager, and I'm sure now this is another learning curve for him. And obviously, from a management point of view, you'd like to think that if you're on the sideline, you'd be doing all you can, and you'd have those strategies thought out, that an eventuality of this happening, you'd have a mechanism to get that, you know, Killian McDade back in as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And trying to run down the clock, as I said to you, initially what you were doing is you were playing with 14 men and attracting an offensively very strong team onto you in the closing stages of a game. So, you know, probably learning curve for everybody. Could they have done it better? Possibly, but as I said, you're going forward. Galway look as if they're progressing in a nice fashion, so I'm sure, you know, it's a small
it's just a small little thing, but just like I wouldn't have the fault on the referee, Conan. I would more have it on what the hell were Galway doing? You know?
I know, but like there are big phases of play now. It's going to happen a lot where people have the ball for 2 minutes, so it would seem harsh. Like Galway are trying to get the ball out from a kick out, so I can understand, like, you know, what they're doing. They're trying to get possession, but surely there should be. We always go back into rule changes after the rules have been brought in, but let the linesman should look after the 10 minutes and then bring him in behind the ball or something, so he's not just coming in the full forward line unmarked. The linesman can say, right, you're alright to go in now.
Right, so the break and play you think is the issue, because it
could be 3 minutes, like, you know, and then suddenly it could be 13 minutes. Like that will happen a lot, that you'll be over the 10-minute mark.
I know, but would you not think in the situation that once it went over 10 minutes and Galway were in possession of the ball, that, you know, it would have been another area where they could have probably ran down the clock a little bit more by getting the ball out play, getting the, you know, Killian McDade back in. It's a tough one to call.
How would you get word out into the field? You know, to do something.
You know,
like
look, it's a great talking point for us and for everybody else. And as I said, you you know, it's a small problem for Pádraig Joyce going forward today that it actually happened. But I'm sure now going forward, teams will have, you know, huge emphasis on making sure that this doesn't happen
that
again.
they're timing it as well. Yeah, exactly. So Pádraig Joyce said afterwards, he was livid, by the way. He said we were the better team, and they were. They had goal chances in the first half that it didn't take. I love this quote, and this is great. It's so obvious what Pádraig Joyce is trying to do in there, and some of their forward play looks great. We started to go backwards and sideways. This is at the very end. This is when they're running down Killian McDade's, but this wasn't in this context. He said we started to go backwards and sideways, what we're trying to get out of our game. So like Pádraig Joyce is just watching Galway for the last 4 years going, by Jesus, if I ever get them, they won't be. Because we'll talk about Meath and Donegal in the second part, lads. We'll analyse that. The amount of times you're going sideways and backwards and forwards not taking on responsibility to go and, especially from Meath, recycling it. And then you're back out to where you started when the ball was kicked in initially. I just don't get it, and they're clearly trying to get that out of their play, and Pádraig Joyce doesn't like it.
Who got the goal, Willie? Johnny Heaney, cornerback.
Johnny Heaney, attacking cornerback, yeah.
Yeah.
He's picked. We were talking, Colin, here that a lot of teams are going to start picking kind of half-backs, maybe even half-forwards, cornerback, because every team now is playing with a two-man full forward line. So why is your benefit of having a cornerback, you know, which isn't a natural footballer out around the field, why not just play a more attacking player there? Yeah,
I actually seen the quote from Pádraig Joyce on television last night, and he actually was, you know, it wasn't just a quote thrown out there. He looked really genuinely annoyed because they were going forwards and backwards. I'm after seeing 3 or 4 games now. I've seen Louth playing 2 matches in the National League. I've seen some games on television as everyone else. Look at Donegal yesterday. And the amount of times I can understand Pádraig Joyce's frustration, because as well as being a coach and a manager, he played as an inside forward, and a very, very good one. You know, what was pleasing for me was someone who I admire and probably think is technically one of the greatest footballers I've seen in a long, long time, in Shane Walsh. Pádraig Joyce has him doing what he does best now. He's not coming deep, he's not foraging, he's playing as a, you know, as an advanced forward, and you can see his return yesterday. So I think things like that were exceptional. But you know, the amount of times team goes backwards is just, it's shocking, you know. From advanced positions ending up back with your goalkeeper and switching.
That's the worst thing.
It's shocking.
You work so hard to get it down. Your full forward wins it. So he's got a one-on-one situation, and now maybe there's another man inside him, and instead of taking a shot on, he'll go back to the wing forward and back, and now you're back out to the midfielder, who might go back to the centre back, and you're starting all over again.
Yeah, like you mentioned it, Meath were particularly very
they were
bad.
Desperate in the first, with the wind.
Yeah, Brian Menton played this unbelievable 50-yard pass in over the full back line. Neil McGee was sort of at 6s and 7s, and it ended up back out where Menton kicked it.
My God.
And the crowd were groaning.
I don't want to give away the giving out for this part 2, but like, I mean, no, it was just Christ almighty. It was like, and with a gale force wind to make it even worse. If you get a ball in the full forward line with a gale force wind, Colin, you're a corner forward, this is fairy tale stuff. Like, you have to be taking a shot there.
Yeah, well, like that was the fantastic thing about Galway and Kerry. Some of the point taken was exceptional. Yeah. You know, from both sets of teams, it was fantastic. But the reluctance from players now to take on the responsibility of you know, shooting for goal. I see fellas, you know, coming onto the ball with strong breeze behind them, and technically really good players stepping inside the 45 straight in front of the goals, get a minute of space, and rather than pull the trigger and execute the shot, they're shifting it sideways and recycling. You're not going to get a better look at times. No. And it's, you know, what wins keeping possession or getting scores, and as you can see, the score count in our matches over the weekend was shocking, like 7, 8, 9, 10 points a game. It's ridiculous.
And the funny thing is, kicking a score and it going wide isn't a turnover. Like, you're starting again from a set play. So it's not like kicking a wide is as bad a sin as, you know, a turnover on the 45 where you're killing your team. Why not take a shot? What can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Do you know what I mean? Take a shot with the wind. I don't get it. I wasn't even that accurate, and I'd be shooting. Like, you don't get that many balls, do you, Colin, with a chance of shooting?
No, it's the same myself as fond of shooting.
You are, yeah, you definitely were. Come here, we'll talk about Meath and Donegal definitely in the second half. Mayo lost again against Dublin, and lads, to be honest with you, it's almost nostalgia keeps this as a rivalry, if we're being honest, because it's not now. It's 16 games, 13 defeats, 3 draws. That's the closest Mayo got to beating Dublin. Mayo went down to 14 men, and that was in the 14th minute. And to be honest with you, I don't think it was a red card. I think it was a yellow card, clumsy. John Small wasn't hurt. It wasn't a. I don't think it was that dangerous a tackle, to be honest with you. He kind of jumped into him. If that's a red card, you're moving into kind of soccer territory at that stage, aren't you?
There is something like. I'm not put out by the fact that it's a red card, because I feel like we're sitting here every week and we're justifying clotheslines, and then after a while it's like I would have been happy if that was a yellow.
But that was I would struggle. I think if John Small was running a huge pace past him and he did that, and it was like a whiplash effect, John Small was just kind of soloing slowly towards him. It wasn't a clothesline as such. It was more of a clumsy forearm.
It was an awkward tackle for me. No, I definitely don't think it was a red card. If you're a manager standing on the sideline now, I could understand James Horan being furious, to be honest, which his arms were high and John Small came into him, but it was nothing that you'd look, if you were sitting in the match watching it, you wouldn't be saying Jesus Christ, he has to go, so
yeah. But John Small wasn't running at pace. I would take your point. If he was, Conan, I would say Jesus, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but honestly, I would have been happy with a yellow there, and I wouldn't have thought about it again. But there is some, I feel like we do talk about these tackles, and there's a culture now. This isn't to put it on Jordan Flynn's door or Mayo's, but there is that culture of having to leave something on a player. Like you have to contact. You don't get that much time anymore to make a clean tackle, so you just have to put contact on.
Yeah.
And again, it's harsh that Mayo are the ones are being singled out for it, but maybe there is something that needs to be done in that sense, because that is the idea. Go in and make him feel like your presence.
Yeah, but I think that's what a yellow card's for. Stop doing it. Like Niall Scully got a yellow card in the second half. It was a desperately harsh yellow card. He did nothing. So they're definitely clamping down on high tackles. James Horan said anyone I've met since thought it was very, very harsh, but we'll have a look at it later and see. So this was in the post-match interview, so the only people James Horan has spoken to are his own players, so he needs to look at a more objective bunch to find
and I saw Andy on analysis that didn't think it was.
But Conan makes a very valid point. There's an awful emphasis now on stopping the opposition running at you, at all costs, and if you get a guy that's coming at you really pacey off the shoulder, once he breaks that tackle,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble initially. So I'm not saying it's encouraged in any fashion, but there is a huge emphasis on defensive plays now to make sure you stop the runners, stop them in all cases.
Right.
And it still, for me, wasn't a red card. It was just
clumsy, but not dangerous.
More than dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Dean Rock's goal, lads. This was one of the most unbelievable goals that you'll ever see. The tight angle, but. Am I right or wrong? I had to rewind this a few different times. I thought he did it with his right hand. It came off his left hand. Now I'm wondering, was this a fluke?
Did he not do both?
No, I rewound it a few times. I think maybe it glanced his first hand. I don't know. Jesus, if I'm going to say it's a fluke, it's a very harsh thing to say. But it seemed to hit the hand I didn't think it was supposed to hit.
It's hard to definitely make out what his motion was in terms of contact. I read somewhere this morning, I think it was John McGrath had something on Twitter to saying, was he actually trying to catch the ball? And I don't know. But
I think catching the ball wouldn't have been any benefit to him. He would have been taking it over the end line. Well, I do think he was maybe trying to flick it, but I thought the natural thing was to catch it with his strong right hand.
He was catching it for mark.
Oh no, it couldn't be a mark because McMahon was inside the 40.
Yeah,
he was
okay,
inside
right.
the 45.
So it couldn't be a mark, right? So no, well, whatever, it definitely caught the goalkeeper by surprise.
Oh, there's no doubt. It was a brilliant. It was like a glancing header. Yeah. I don't know, Conan. I could be completely out of order on Dean Rock here.
I think he'd been a bit harsh. He did try one against Kerry as well, hit the post. I think he was going for it over the bar against Kerry. It was just a tight angle, and he tried to flick it on and hit the post and went wide. So he's got previous over the last 2 weeks now, and I thought it was both hands that he got on it and pushed it up over the keeper.
Yeah, if it was both hands, if it hit both, I don't know. And I did rewind it 3 different times, and it's only the very last camera angle that gives you an idea. The others are too.
Look, you have to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. It was, I agree. As Conan said, he has done stuff like this before, and the amount of times he scored goals with palmed efforts is huge. So. You'd have to say to him, listen, go with the forward here.
Yeah, we'll go with the forward. I should. Andy Moran, the kind of, I don't know, always kind of rooted for Mayo against Dublin, in the last 10 years, and would have loved to have seen him win one. And now I'm kind of like, Jesus, they're just consistently losing to them now, and they're not getting close to them. And I don't know, I'd be frustrated looking at them at home there. I know they were down to 14 men, but they didn't really lay a glove on them in the second half. And then Andy Moran's all kind of positive after the game, and he's like, geez, there's a lot of positives to take from that. Like, what are they? Right, your full back played well, big deal. Yeah, he's a good young lad. There's not that many positives taken out of that now, if we're being honest. And Brawley, in fairness to him, pulled up. He said, you'd want to be extremely positive to take a lot of positives out of that. And he was dead right. Like, he wasn't hitting the tone I thought a Mayo person should have been hitting. I would have been a little bit more down in the dumps as a Mayo person after losing again to Dublin.
Yeah.
You'd probably like to see a little bit more from them in the early stages of the league if they're going to be a factor later on in the summer. You still see Lee Keegan coming back in, Keith McLaughlin coming back in, or Kevin McLaughlin coming back in. You know, Colin Boyle is still big stakeholder to play. Aidan O'Shea. You know, it's all the same names and
but the new names aren't going to replace them. No, they're nowhere near their level.
You know, that's and for me that's the key. Whereas you can see huge progression with Galway, and you're always saying if Kerry, you know, if Kerry can sort out some of the defensive issues that was highlighted even again last night by the Galway guys running at them, they have a chance. But you know, it's difficult to see Mayo bridging that gap.
Yeah.
Really, I don't know. It could be, you know, you could be totally wrong. It's very early in the season, and they have a tendency to, you know, to contend late into the summer, and I'm sure that won't change. But you see Galway now, you know, making a big case for themselves under Porrick Joyce.
And the reality of Mayo is that they were destroyed by both Dublin and Kerry, who seem to have moved ahead of them. And the danger for Mayo now is that Donegal and Galway are going to move ahead of them. That's the way I look at it with Mayo.
Yeah, and like again, we're always at this time of year we're looking at who Mayo have that can freshen it up a little bit. And there's just a couple of balls yesterday, and I was thinking, come on Saturday night, Ryan O'Donoghue was 50 yards out in the middle of goals. You know, just had a chance to pick a pass in front of James Carr, and he just like drilled it in on his head, like, you know, with a double man up his arse, and just could have been bounced in front of him and an easy score. And there was little things like this. Fergal Boland, you were talking about taking the shot on, but Aidan O'Shea had like wrestled out of 3 players, popped it to Stephen Cohen, who popped it to Boland. The shot wasn't on for those 2, but Boland tried to shoot anyway, got blocked down, double went down, had an attack. There was just little things like this where you're like, this isn't
it's not the top level.
Like,
yeah.
No, it's not what you need.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Boland, now that you mention him, got a terrible little mark, but it's an undeserved mark. And O'Hagan for down, did you see that in the highlights last night? Just gets a mark. This is to put them a point up. I'd say you must have been tearing your head out. He doesn't deserve a free shot for that to go a point up against Derry.
I'm starting to calculate how far the 20 metres is.
Well, Boland wasn't 20.
I don't think so.
No way.
And he took on a really risky shot outside of the boot,
outside
on the
of the
right
boot,
hand side. Great score.
Great score. Yeah. Do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, Oli. Like the 20-yard. I'm not a fan of the mark. I seen Tomás O'Shea quoting somewhere that, you know, you're giving the guy a free shot at goals for catching the ball. Now I feel it does have a part to play. There was a couple of great instances yesterday in Drogheda. Samuel Ryan in particular, there was a great ball in by a young guy making his debut on his second appearance in Louth, and Samuel Ryan College. So there is instance where delighted with it, but then you see phases where guys just breaking off an inside line 20 yards. It's like Australian rules football.
Yeah.
And but you're giving them a free shot. Like, I don't know.
The O'Hagan one from down wasn't even a forward ball. This was a cross.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't even an offensive kick.
Yeah.
This was a sideways kick, which we want to get out of the game.
And then, like, that's how you, as a Derry fan, you're just hopeless then, because the whole game stops and it's like a free for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everybody has to go away and let them shoot.
Yeah. Look, we won't get too much into it. Conor Lane, lads, one of the biggest names in refereeing in the country. I'm not going to say best. Jesus, he got every penalty decision wrong yesterday for Meath and Donegal. So they were all Jamie Brennan, who was absolutely sensational. So the first one, he gave him a free on the 21 metre line. He was clearly being fouled inside the box. I don't know was he even being fouled, but if it was a free, it had to be a penalty. So I'm looking at that going, he just got fouled pretty much at the top of the small square. And you've given a free on the edge of the box. How is that possible? Then he gives 2 penalties that are clearly outside the box, that the momentum brings them inside the box. 3 penalty decisions he got wrong in the first half alone. Discuss.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, brother.
I'm not so sure on the Conor McGill one. I'm probably going to slightly disagree with you on that one. I'm not so.
You think that was inside?
I do. Well, look,
It's border. It was borderline.
The first one was definitely outside. Okay, I do agree with you. The first free, I couldn't understand why he was given a close in free when it's obvious the foul happened for me inside the.
Yeah, so that's that first one. Now we've 2 penalties then after that.
But these guys don't look. The problem for me is, like, it's so frustrating as a manager to sit there and you have to bite your tongue. You can't say, and it's great now to be able to say here and comment on this. Like, but why can these guys not explain? You know where they're at. You know, are they getting help from umpires? Are they getting help from linesmen? You know, who's assisting them in these calls? Like, but like to get all the calls wrong, I don't think it really affected the game, because I think there was justice in the first one because Marcus Brennan made a brilliant save. I think the second one actually was a penalty. I think it's slightly inside the box, so I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Then there was a case for the one with Michael Murphy
At the end, another borderline one. Yeah.
You know, was it inside? Was it outside?
That was on the line, I think. I'm going to give him a break for that one because it was on the line.
Three you got wrong.
But these are huge calls.
Yeah, it's unusual to have 3 borderline penalties in the same game, isn't it?
But like, they're huge calls. When you see the emphasis the teams put in preparation, you know, and what goes into preparing a team for you to be done by a refereeing decision. And I'm not saying that really cost Meath yesterday, but you know, the decisions that we need to get right.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating for management, for players, and as I said to you, like, everyone else is accountable. So why referees, you know, even explain themselves? Let's know what's the thought process behind these decisions.
Yeah, they don't seem to have any appetite to do that. They definitely don't. Like, I suppose maybe it's just the whole amateur thing and having to go out in front of the media. I don't know. But McGill, the fullback, Conor McGill, got sin binned for the second penalty, and it's a double whammy really. It's like that soccer last man back red card penalty and the red card. That's a killer altogether, and you have to wonder, is the penalty enough in that situation? Because Conor McGill, a penalty in Gaelic football now is 80% sure it's going to be saved since it was brought in. Is it going to be scored since it was brought in? Is Conor McGill cynically taking him down there, or is he desperately trying to stop him scoring?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, he was trying to tackle. It wasn't like, I can't tackle you, so tripping your heels.
Exactly. So that can't really. It's harsh to give a black.
And they both tripped over each other. It is a foul, but I don't know if it's Cynical.
Their legs tangled.
Penalty.
I'd like to think that, like, Conor McGill isn't a standing fullback. All-star nomination this year, and I'd like to think that in that situation, you know, maybe the thought process goes out the window, but like, he was in on goal, he was probably going to score a goal, so I don't think he would have taken the chance of it. I thought he was actually falling in the process of tackling him.
Yeah.
And I thought he bundled him over. So for me, like, the rule is the rule, so we did take him down, and it, you know, it looked, for all intents and world, it's Cynical. So you can't have one rule for the black card in the box and another rule out. So he had to go from my point of view. But I don't actually think he was being cynical. I think he was genuinely trying to make a tackle, and he just, you know, got unbalanced, got tangled up, and pulled him to the ground. But
because that's
rules
the thing,
are rules.
if a lad's going through, do you just say, Jesus, I'll just let him shoot, or even though, because you're desperate at that stage to stop him, or do you desperately try to put a hand in, and then you could risk getting a.
If you know, if that was the same situation, and say he had a line break and it was outside the small parallelogram, say it was in the 20-metre line he was crossing, well, then you have to say to yourself, right, okay, he's taken one for the team here, because
it would be more obvious then.
It's more obvious then, but like, I think it was a goal situation anyway. It looked as if he probably knew it was a penalty, he probably knew it was a goal situation, so I don't think he was leaving it to his goalkeeper to bail him out of jail. So I think myself, he probably got him balanced, stumbled a wee bit, and was trying, you know, 100% to put in an effective tackle, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
I think Conor Lane's within his rights there, though, to say that he didn't deliberately pull him down. Like, so that's obviously the rule, has to be a deliberate pull down. Like, you can bring people down, but as long as it's not deliberate, and if he is tackling and they both trip, Lane can say, look, it's definitely a foul, but I don't think it was deliberate, so I don't think it was a black card.
The only thing for for referees who are giving penalties, because it happened to Mark Timmins last week for Laois, and I don't think anybody gives away a penalty. Giving away a penalty is pretty much a goal. So I think referees need to stop and think: is the black card, you know what I mean? Is it deliberate, or is it a desperate effort to stop a goal? There's two different, you know.
That's my point. You know, if they're inside there, a fella's clever enough to know, like you know, they're probably going to score. So You know, why spend 10 minutes in the
What are you
sideline as well?
what are you benefiting
you
from
know,
deliberately
team's not
doing
benefiting,
it?
so
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why I don't think McGill actually was cynical in what he was doing. I think it was a genuine effort to make the tackle. He just got tangled up.
Yeah, exactly. So Division 2, lads, as predicted, is a bloodbath. Nobody wants to go down into Tier 2. Waiting to hear this. Laois are on 3 points. Top of the table, lads. No problems here. Roscommon are on 1 point, which is very surprising, and the other 6 teams are all on 2 points in the middle, so they've all beat each other. Obviously Fermanagh winning, Clare winning and Cavan winning all got them up onto 2 points and beat teams that were already on 2 points. Laois had an outstanding win against Armagh. I made an awful balls of this on Saturday night, lads, so I landed down to O'Moore Park at about 6:30 and I always park in Super Value underneath the car park, and I looking at my watch says, geez, I'm early now, I'll be freezing. So I headed into Super Value, I bought myself a few beers for after the match for when I went home, put them back in the car, strolling up to the match, and then looked around and says, why is nobody walking into this stupid game? And then looked at the phone and the game started at 6. I was livid. I started sprinting. Then I realised it's 25-7, it's half time. Then I started walking, so I'm all flustered at this stage, and then I get in and a few Portlaoise lads start telling me that I waited till half time to get in for nothing, and I said, I have a bloody press pass, sure, that's not good. So got in anyways. It was 8-2 to Laois. Unbelievable stuff, and just saw some of Evan O'Carroll's scores in the first half on the highlights last night, but in the second half, like, Laois were solid, and Laois, other than a little bit of a rally at the start of the second half by Armagh, which Laois kind of, you know, put a stop to, Armagh were desperate, lads. They were absolutely desperate. And Ciaran McGeeney said after the game, he said, we just didn't play well. We were poor from start to finish. We got in trouble, gave the ball away, poor shots from play, poor shots in action, poor passes. I could go through the whole list, and he's not wrong on all of that. They were terrible. And he says, now, I don't want to take away from Laois, who were good and did what they had to do. He said, this was, I thought, was an interesting comment. We were just poor, but obviously that stops with me, and whatever we were doing during the week just didn't work. And I was thinking, Colin, what the hell could they have been doing during the week? Sure, like, I presume every team is doing the same thing. Recovery on Tuesday and a bit of football on Thursday night, getting ready for the weekend.
I think it's moved on a little bit from the time you were playing.
Well, I'm only talking about the group sessions on the field or whatever. Like to be a light session Tuesday, right? Like, you wouldn't be going mad.
Look, you don't know in terms of, you know, analysis what they're looking at, the setup, what they're taking from the previous games. But the one thing, you know, I like Geezer. I think he's done an outstanding job with Armagh, and he never looks for the blame anywhere else. You know, maybe it's an angle that he's putting it up and just saying, listen, I got it wrong. Taking the. So
you maybe think their analysis of Laois he got wrong. I was thinking on the field. Maybe you're right. I didn't think of that.
There's different phases, you know, of your preparation from, you know, and you don't have a huge amount of turnaround now. It's not like Premier teams in England where you're in, you know, every day of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
These guys probably were meeting twice, 3 times a week, whatever it is. As you said, once, rightly so, would be recovery. You know, you're probably analysing your own performance. You're trying to get a handle on what Laois is going to bring to the table. But, you know, as I said, you wouldn't have got a huge pile wrong in terms of training and what pitch work you'd be doing between Friday. Could they have, you know, worked a little bit harder maybe one of the nights? Could they have been a little bit more intense? It's hard to know. But the one thing, you know, for me, you know, when I look at someone like Geezer, I see a guy that's totally honest, and, you know, for me, I would presume there, like, he's taking the heat away from his players, and he's saying, listen, you know, players win games, managers lose them.
Yeah,
and
because he's fairly brave, because let's be honest, his record with Armagh hasn't been outstanding for 5 years. Like, I mean, they flatter to deceive a lot. I was so disappointed with them the other night. I talk up Armagh a lot. I think they're good, they've great potential. I don't know, I think maybe they're where Galway were 4 years ago, just inconsistent, can't get that level of consistency going with good forwards but not getting the best out of them. I don't know, like, that's a kick in the arse to them, Conan, because Oisín O'Neill speaking about remember I said targeting targeting Cavan.
Targeting Cavan for what, the last 6 weeks,
and then being asleep
it's
for
like,
Laois.
oh shit, we've got 6 days until Laois. Like, yeah, maybe the analysis just wasn't as in depth. Maybe he did get the analysis wrong because he was focusing on Cavan for so long.
Yeah.
But the reality is they have, you know, 4 more games now after that Cavan match. They were always going to have the rest of the league to play. So
yeah, that's a danger with such a lead time into the first league game, is it, Colin, that you go, right, we're hitting this one, and all of a sudden, shit, we haven't mentioned anything about these 6 weeks.
I don't know. Like, as a manager, you sit down, you have to plan out all you know, all your road trips, all your home matches, you know, I don't think there's, like, especially in that Division 2, like, they would have been aware of the fact that Laois got a result against Roscommon. So it's not as if they're coming in totally blind. You know, Evan O'Carroll, the week before, we spoke about the goal he scored. We know the type of player he is, and he, you know, again, he carried that form into last Saturday as well. So Laois have a lot of good players, you know, and they probably wouldn't be historically a team that does very well against Laois. Laois
have won 6 of the last 7. They're a bogey team.
You know, a bogey
We've
team.
gone up to Armagh beating them up there.
Yeah, just, you know, once things like that get into your head and the mentality of the team is not right, but you know, it's a tough one. I think Armagh will still be there at the business end of things. I think they're gonna take beating within the division. I think they've a great, you know, opportunity to come out of it.
Yeah, so I think if they don't, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think they're slightly underperforming. Talking about Laois are definitely overperforming. Mike Quirk says we're delighted with the performance and result. We're not overly surprised by it because it's what we're seeing in training since we started. And he made reference to everybody talking, and I'm guilty of this, talking about the players that left and not talking about the players that are playing. And we look at Eddie Brennan last year for Laois, and all the talk was lads that didn't want to commit, and Eddie Brennan says I don't care about them, and he'll work with the lads that do want to. And maybe that there's a kind of a siege mentality that they might get out of that, lads. You're the ones doing it, you're the ones we care about, you're the ones putting in the effort, and the players seem to be responding back to that.
Yeah. I'd rather lose with players who want to be here rather than win with players who don't.
Have they changed much last year from Sugar to Mike Quirk? Is it something similar? Has he introduced any different structures to how they play the game?
Not major, no.
From the second half
that I saw. Well, it's still based around getting the ball in early that I could see, and like Evan O'Carroll is unmarkable when he's in that form. He takes on his men, and Armagh, I suppose, with them not being a defensive team, they were sitting ducks for Evan O'Carroll. Farker was in on him. I don't think he started on him, and he wasn't able for him at all. And Evan O'Carroll scored 2 from play, 3 frees, but he was fouled a good few more times. You know, Barry was sticking over frees. And a big change to have Corbett in goals. Graham Brodie, who isn't able to get onto the team now. Corbett's interesting, has played in goals for League of Ireland. So we know, like, the likes of Patton and these fellas have done that. And Corbett plays centre or wing forward for Clonaslee. They were in the intermediate final. He is lethal on frees, and he plays similar to Brodie. He comes out the field, all that kind of thing. So, like, I mean, it's heartbreaking for me not to see one of my favourite goalkeeper in the country not in there, but Corbett looks very good as well.
That's class. Quirky time has them all smiling, and
Quirky time has them all smiling, and it's looking good. They still have a very good forward line, and John O'Loughlin's a really solid midfielder, and, like, I mean, they're doing well. They're doing well keeping the score down. Only 4 points from play Armagh scored with that forward line, so, like, it was very good from Laois.
Is it better for Evan O'Carroll now? I don't want to disrespect any of the Kingstons, but now that he is the number one main man, like, he is a king when he's on form, but it's like everything is going to go through Evan O'Carroll now rather than it being divvied up where there's a big man in there.
But the danger of everything going through Evan O'Carroll is that a good team will double up on him with Evan O'Carroll just bullied Farker out of the way last night. You know, he's a big strong fella, but, like, you need more strings to your bow than just the obvious good lad. Although Colin Murphy is a very good player as well. Anyways, we have to move on from Laois. I'll be accused of being biased here, but it was a great result. It was a great result for them. You were at Louth Tip in Drogheda, Colin, like we said. So this was 3 points up at half time. Then against the Gale Force win, getting an early goal to go 6 up and holding out on that 6 until the 56th minute when it all started to go wrong.
Yeah, it looked very much as if like the first day against Longford, I thought we were very poor over in Pearse Park. Didn't really get into rhythm at all. Started a few young fellas getting some debuts, and we just didn't look up to it. But I thought yesterday for long periods we worked really hard. Tommy Dornan was manful in the middle of the field. Dermot Campbell, a guy from my own club, played full back. He was decent. Emmett Carlin, the young guy centre back, was decent. And you know, we seemed to be competitive. Now, I thought Tipperary would have been better. It's not the Tipperary team that played in All Ireland semi-final a couple of years ago, obviously, with the likes of, you know, Colin Reardon gone, Mike Quinlivan gone,
McGrath's gone as well. Liam McGrath, I think.
You know, Seamus Kennedy. Like, there's fellas out of the team that's really good. But I think the impact from the bench for Tipperary towards the end, they bring in 3 subs that all left-footed guys that kicked serious scores. Alan, what you'd call number 22, he came in, he was brilliant. He kicked 2 great scores off the outside of his boot, where we just hadn't that momentum, and I felt we made a couple of poor decisions. I think we took 2 of our younger lads off, Liam Jackson and Paul Matthews, that were playing in wing positions, and I thought they were influencing the game. We took them off, and we didn't really get the impact from the bench they had. So
right.
Disappointing. Brian Fox was outstanding for the whole match.
Heard that,
he
yeah.
was excellent.
Yeah, he's a really good industrious type player. So are Tipperary playing of it? Paddy Talley accused Tipperary, I call it an accusation. It's probably not really an accusation. He said Tipperary played a very defensive style of football. It was a 10-all last week against Down. What were they like against Louth, and how are Louth approaching it? We had Wayne Kerins on the show last year, and he sounded like he played more of a kicking game.
In the first half, I suppose, in the first half, there was space for the Louth players to play inside. As we said, we got a couple of marks inside where Liam Jackson played one particular long ball into Samuel Roy, who I thought he had a great game yesterday. Kicked some great scores for Mark, and we got a mark to Tommy Dornan inside. So there was probably a bit of space, but they were dropping, they were getting behind the ball. But the difference in the likes of Louth and Tipperary, and you look like someone like Donegal in the transition is serious. They break out of the half back line where the other team is retreating and they've a bit of space to play. But the minute they hit the 45, all these teams tend to go lateral. And Louth, when we went lateral, we couldn't get the line breakers. We got 1 or 2 young Clutterbuck came off the shoulder. Great, and how it wasn't a black card, I'll never know. It was a goal chance towards the end of the game, but both teams were dropping, but we don't seem to have that punch where we get fellas coming at different angles through the middle really quick to open up space for inside players to loop around and get shots off. So it was played in the middle third, and it is what it is. As you go down the divisions, it's not as good as what you're looking at up the divisions. But it was disappointing from a Louth point of view, because I felt we needed that 2 points to give us a bit of momentum going into Offaly next Sunday.
They're not the Division 3 and 4 teams aren't as good as moving the ball down at the field at pace with a bit of conviction and maybe avoiding the stalemates. So they seem to find stalemates at both ends because they're slow with their build up, and that doesn't make for a good game. I think the good teams have moved past that, and we see better games then at the higher level. Yeah,
they probably put more an emphasis on what they're going to do when they get into the opposition's half rather than how they're going to stop the opposition. And that's why Pádraig Joyce's quote is just refreshing, to think that he's sick of looking at this backways and forward and lateral rather than trying to get the ball forward. And I don't think as I said, you've seen Longford last week where I thought they were a little bit better, but both Louth and Tipperary, to me yesterday, just lacked that real attacking force. I thought Conor Sweeney, who's a player I've huge admiration
very
for,
good player,
probably off form with his shooting a wee bit in the conditions. You can understand that, but you didn't really see. Samuel Roy was excellent for Louth, but you don't really see those surging runs coming through from half backs that you see from the top teams, like Ryan McHugh's support run for Donegal's third goal was 70-80 yards, where he just stays going, and they probe wide to get you to force out to attack them, and then they drive hard through the middle. Whereas I just felt we were very, we played along the 45, and it is difficult because teams are dropping off you, and then we've a lot of younger guys coming in, so they, for those guys to be just trying to break down those lines, it is difficult, and it's a progress that we need to probably just work a little bit better at. Yeah,
I think all the Division 3 and 4 teams probably need to do. Mention a shout out to Wexford, who beat Carlow. None of us tipped this. Division 4 is wide open now as well. Sligo had a great win at home to Antrim, but they were 2-6 to 2 points up. Wexford were at half time. Their full forward line scored all of their scores bar a point, so scored 2-9 out of 2-10. And Conor Carty was interviewed afterwards, and he was asked about buying into Paul Galvin's game plan. He says, we're 100% buying into it. Paul said it at half-time that we had to be brave in the second half, that we couldn't just sit back. We had to attack them and take them on. When we took them on, we won our fouls and created scores. That's good to hear, isn't it, from a Division 4 manager? Don't sit back, Go attack them. That's Paul Galvin's way of playing. It's Pádraig Joyce's way. It's funny, lads, these are from the same era. The more managers maybe that are coming from that era that have come through watching the last 10 years that are a bit tired of it, because I know Paul Gavin tired of watching lateral stuff, and so is Pádraig Joyce. Maybe we might be seeing more teams forced to go out. I'm sick of this. This was a good quote. The way we're trying to play this year, it's more direct. We're trying to give those longer balls, but against the wind, it's not on all the time. It's about decision making. You have to adapt to the conditions. All sensible stuff, Conan, and it's no surprise if you're trying to get the ball in longer that their full forward line's benefiting from that.
Yeah, we should actually cut up a sting of when we had Paul Galvin in here a few years ago, and every time he was complaining about hand passing, and it's bloody hand passing.
No,
he
hates soloing and hopping as well.
Sorry, that's what it is. Yeah, people slowing the ball down. He's like, move the thing on. That's what he wanted. And that's what he's doing.
Well, that's the thing, and I always say it because of the culture now and the tactics where most teams copy each other eventually. Every team pushes up on kickouts. So you always have one-on-ones if you're fast. If you go along with your kick out and you win the kick out, you have one-on-ones if you're brave and go down from that, and if you want to play in long balls, and Carlow can't get back in time. And that seems to be the way. Obviously we didn't see Wexford and Carlow. We're just kind of guessing from who scored and what quotes, what people are saying. But you were down with Wexford. There's a lot for him to work with down there, is there?
Yeah, I spent a good bit of last spring and summer down with Wexford. I went in with Paul McLaughlin to give him a bit of a dig out, and I found them fantastic lads to work with, and talent. They have a lot of talent. Guys like Owen Nolan, Brian Malone, Glenn Malone, Jim Roster, Martin Carroll, great defender. But you see Ben getting 1-5, like that's what he has all day long. Even last year in the summer, I remember played Louth in the first round of the championship, and he kicked some scores that day off the outside of his boot from range. And he's a fantastic footballer. Jonathan Beelan's another highly capable footballer. So Paul Galvin's obviously going to suit the way these guys want to play.
Yeah, and I think that's Wexford natural game down there as well, isn't it? Kick passing, that's the way with Jason Ryan they always played best, and I think they're natural footballers down there. Yeah,
they have very, very good players, and most of these counties do have excellent players. It's just getting the right fellas to do the right jobs.
Yeah.
Someone like Ben Brosnan dropping into a defensive position and pressing and tackle count, it's not him.
Madness.
Give him the ball and let him express himself, and you've seen what he's done, and great result for them, especially against a Carlow team that would be pushing.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Right, we'll come back and we'll take a look at the Meath Donegal game. Alright, so this was Donegal 3-8, Meath 7 points, and game pretty much over at half time with the Donegal goals. I want to start with Meath. They're a good bit off this top level, aren't they, Colin?
Yeah, they've had a difficult start. Tough fixtures away to Tyrone and Omagh and Donegal yesterday in Navan. I think Donegal's a real good team.
It's not their full team though, and they're home to them. Like it was one I was thinking that could potentially get a.
Yeah, I agree with you, and probably like Meath are down a couple of players too. That Lavin's missing, Mickey Newman's missing. They've a huge problem with the goalkeeper. Huge problem.
Shane Walsh is missing too. I don't know where, and young Conlon in the corner. So they are.
Well,
I'm going to give out about their forwards soon, but they are missing. They're probably 2 starters.
Yeah, and it's
3 starters with Newman.
It's a big step up for them. And they probably got a couple of goal chances early on against Tyrone. They didn't take them, and Tyrone's result yesterday against Monaghan would suggest maybe they're not in the place that people think they are. So maybe. We give Tyrone too much credit for Meath's result, but yesterday, they're not scoring enough. Meath, they scored, I think an average of 9.5, 10 points between the 2 games. It's not going to be good enough in Division 1.
So that's the thing, and we talked about them recycling too much balls. So Cillian O'Sullivan drops out around midfield, and Odra McFadden Farry followed him, and we know when Odra McFadden Farry follows you, you're going to have a tough day at the office because he's a hardy bit of stuff, and he's like he's one of those man markers that marks you all over the field, a little bit like Murchan. If you're in the half forward line and he's man marking you, you don't get any handy balls. But anyway, Cillian O'Sullivan has to contend with that every game, because he's probably Meath's best forward. Thomas O'Reilly played well. First ball went into Thomas O'Reilly, he got a turn and scored a point. We didn't see that for the rest of the half with the wind. It was incredible, and the few balls that did go in, like I said, it was Dardis did it, Joey Wallace did it, recycling the ball back out, giving it straight back out the way it came, not taking a shot on. I can't understand. There was one incident in the first half when Brian Conlon, the midfielder, turned over the ball, and he gave a good early ball down to Eamon Wallace on the 45. Eamon Wallace gets the ball on the 45. We know he has loads of pace. He runs across. He's on his right foot, cuts inside on his right foot. Now, how there's not a kick pass on in there to Riley or to whoever's in the full forward line, I don't know. What does he do? Hand passes it off, and the next hand pass is back to where that ball had come. Like that attack there from a turnover. Wallace has to be shown that on the video. That is no good what you've done there. Now we're facing a wall of Donegal lads again. We had an attack on. You were in no way decisive with the ball, and what you've done there is punish a good move from us.
And I think that would happen. I don't think it's a case that the Meath players are saying, or the Meath management is saying to Eamon Wallace, you can't pull the trigger in that instance. I'd say that's a player's choice. Like you spoke about the one earlier on where Fenton played the ball inside to Joey Wallace, I think.
It was Joey Wallace, not Dardis. That was it.
Like Joey Wallace. It was a brilliant pass inside 50 yards. So he now wins the ball, inside the 14-yard line, right, in a 1-on-1 with a defender. Like a top class quality forward. Like if you give that ball into David Clifford, he's getting a shot off. You give that ball into Dean Rock, he's getting a shot off.
With the wind.
Yeah, So Meath have walked the ball into a brilliant advanced attacking position, and the guy who received the ball has made the decision to recycle it back out the field. Like, so as I said, yeah, I know Colin, who's involved in coaching the Meath team, and I would be 100% nailed on. I'm not sure, I haven't discussed it with him, but I'd be 100% nailed on. Like, they're encouraging those players to take those opportunities on, and it's the players that's refusing to.
Right,
and
maybe
the
it's a lack
recycling,
of quality, but
it's probably it comes down to confidence too, and but these are lads that tore up the Meath Senior Championship. Joey Wallace, Eamon Wallace, Bryony McMahon, tore up the Meath Senior Championship, and yet they go out against Donegal and they're pretty much sniffed out, So it's a huge step up from Division 2 to Division 1, and it's one that they're probably not finding easy.
It is, and their kick-outs were a disaster as well. It's their goalkeeper Marcus Brennan. I think he's their third choice goalkeeper.
Well, Marcus Brennan retired last year. Marcus Brennan is the goalkeeping coach.
Right.
So Marcus Brennan
played minor in 02. So that's, I think it was, he played in the minor final in 02. Well, that would make him 35. But the point of this was, sometimes I have to wonder about goalkeepers, and whether you say to your goalkeeper, Colin, do you say to him, do what you see in front of you, decide yourself, or do you say, and here's another thing, say you're going with a gale force wind, and this kind of gale force wind has landed on you in a home game, and your goalkeeper likes to kick it short. Would you go to him and say, look, because we have a gale force wind, I want you to drop that on the other 45 metre line? The point I'm making is, Donegal pressed them, right? So you've got a gale force wind and you're being pressed. He went short with his kickouts. The minute he went short and Donegal pressed it, if Donegal didn't win it, they'd drop back, and they flooded the middle of the field. They almost headed back ahead of the ball and says, now come at us here, you've won the kick out, well done. And Meath will play it around a couple of times at the back, and now they're coming up to face Donegal. Whereas, it doesn't make any sense. If they're pressing up and you have a gale force wind, surely you say, right, I know our kick out strategy is to go short the odd time, but because of the conditions on today, we're going to rip up that script, and I want you to pump it along only if they press up. If they don't press up, we'll obviously change it or whatever.
See, I think there's a stat out there somewhere flying about the place that most of the kick out you go short, which you don't score off. Right? It's safe possession. I think there's a couple of things. From my point of view, when I was involved with Louth, like the guy that's in goals at the minute with Louth, he's probably getting, he's getting stick at the minute for kickouts with Louth, and he's a serious kicker of the ball, right? But we had, like the only thing that we'd really conditioned was he had to have the ball on the tee ready to go ASAP, right? And if there was something on that we could transition the ball really quick, he did it. If not, we had areas of the field obviously that we wanted to go to that we'd better ball winners. Like Bevan Duffy was always a safe bet. Throw the ball out to Bevan Duffy, you can guaranteed that it's not going to be one clean over his head. He's either going to win it, and you flood that area with bodies. I think the problem you have at Meath at the minute, I think there's a problem around the goalkeeping thing, and the more you speak about a problem, the more it becomes a problem. And I think there's a lack of confidence there. As I said, you think Marcus Brennan had stood down and retired from. As I said, I think he was in giving Gary Rogers was coaching the goalkeepers, and I think Marcus was giving him a hand. So fair play to the guy for standing in and
yeah, I don't want to be too critical. I don't want to be too
critical
of him.
No, it's a valid question. Like, you know, when you get a Gael win, why do you not go into certain areas with the ball? And I'm sure this is stuff that has been worked on. But
yeah, especially with the Donegal press, because if Donegal were dropping off, you'd say, right, we're landing it down to an area they have more bodies. Why would you do that? And then in the second half, right, so Meath pressed Donegal, and Patton's kick-out's obviously very good. But the difference between Meath and Donegal is Meath pressed the kick-out and then pressed the players with the kick-out. You know, that won the kick-out. So they were, when Donegal got past that press, even through a couple of hand passes, they had more joy down the other end. Where Meath never had joy, because Donegal, if they didn't win the initial kick-out, they were heading back. So tactically, Donegal played really smart against the wind. They still tried to win the kick-out, but if they didn't win it, they were flooding the midfield area, and Meath didn't really get any momentum with the wind.
And like Donegal got out a lot easier as well against the wind. Like they were able to get out against and for the wind, whereas Meath struggled both ways. Like, you know, and there was just a weird mentality. There was one stage, Killian O'Sullivan, he won a free 48 metres out. Like, you know, that's the age of the D in a day like that. And he turned around and kicked it back, and again the crowd were like, what
the amount of times they did it.
Yeah, put it down. Somebody come out. Who's your free taker? Come out and put it over.
I don't think they had an established free taker. Like the two free takers is Mickey Newman and Shane Walsh. Like they'd an issue of free taking in the Leinster final. They'd an issue of free taking yesterday. Said even the goalkeeper is not an established free taker as such. So your
man Ben Brennan, he came on at half time. He can kick him off the left, but this was in the first half.
Yeah, first half. But even like that's something that should be discussed beforehand, because if that was 30 yards out, then the free taker, whoever has been designated, is coming out to take it. But because it was 48 metres out, nobody even thought there's a score on here. And like the cornerback came up from that same position and swung one over with about 20 yards to spare. Yeah. Do you know, it was just
they were very disappointed. And the one the cornerback scored, it was David Toner.
Yeah.
That was recycled from Thomas Riley in the corner. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, they play such confused football. it's not good football for me. It's just not. They don't play good football. Now, I do take the point they're missing three of their best forwards.
I know, and the other thing that can't be emphasised enough is it's a huge step up from playing, you know, Division 2 coming up to Division 1. Like Donegal, boys pressing you. Like Donegal are a good side, and there is a gulf in class between Donegal and Meath. Like Meath's experience, and they got into, you know, Super 8s last year. They're playing Division 1 for the first time. They're down a few bodies, so they don't really have, you know, the full hand to go to work with as such. And Donegal is formidable. Now, look, you can argue that they weren't great yesterday, but they have some really, really good footballers.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. The two Donegal goals were both mistakes from Robin Clark, who's a new player in cornerback. So he let McFadden Farry inside him way too easily. He could have stopped him. He kind of took a step the other way and almost showed him that way, and then McFadden Farry put on the burners. And then for the second goal, he dived in to Jamie Brennan on a ball, which he, instead of just staying goal side, it was too risky. And the minute Jamie Brennan got that in his hands, he was gone past him. Ryan McHugh, Langan, you know what I mean? Goals. So two of those goals with better defending would have been, but like you said, Lavin would probably be in that. Not Lavin, the other cornerback that you mentioned. McGill. No, not McGill.
No, McGill's the fullback. Lavin is the cornerback.
Yeah, Lavin, yeah.
But the other side of it,
Lavin is the cornerback that was missing.
Look, you know, I've watched Donegal yesterday, and I've watched them in their transition play, right, and it's exceptional. They actually, you know, they hug the two sidelines, right, in high up positions, right. So they're forcing you out all the time and they're waiting and they're probing for that. And once they get into a situation where, they get a lead, they're quite comfortable actually going back to it. Like, it's like watching soccer. They
The
will actually go back to their goalkeeper.
The McFadden-Farry goal came after about 3 minutes of possession from Donegal, didn't it? Like,
yeah,
it was
but
just
if you watch his position, right, you know, Aldrin McFadden was pushed right up into the left corner forward position, and you could see it developing. And I've stopped it. I've watched it again. He was left totally unmarked. Now, you know, they probe, they get their line break in that middle third, and then they play the ball in over the top. But, you know, you can criticise Robin Clark as such, but the finish, like the burners he put on, like if Robin Clark makes a tackle there, we back to the situation where he's going to the sin bin because that guy's not inside the small parallelogram, he's not giving away a penalty. But it was a sensational finish now.
Yeah. Donegal are an interesting team in that you never really know how they're going to play. So they play Kerry in Croke Park last year and they press up high and they continue to press. And then they play another team at Donegal or Tyrone up in Breffni Park and they play a very defensive game plan. And then against Meath, they're playing against them and they press the kick out, but if they don't win it, they're coming back and they're waiting around midfield, so Meath can't really get. They're able to mix it up game on game.
Yeah, I think Colin, what they do consistently though is when they have the ball, they sort of leave space in front of the opposition's goals. So like, I know they've had a basketball coach in with them, a lot of people probably have, but like there's a rule in basketball where you can't be in the key under the basket for 3 seconds, and like that sort of helps the game because it means it's not clogged.
And they run into that.
They run into that.
But Jamie Brennan seemed to break into that space
Ryan
for
McHugh
kick passing.
played it in for the penalty. Even like Meath are at fault for the McFadden-Ferry goal, but he's in there in that space and then it's popped into him, and then Jamie Brennan vacates that space for the Ryan McHugh one to run into for the Langan goal, and they always just leave that free, and then that probably allows them to have more one-on-one situations as well, where they can just find a soft shoulder. And we're pointing out the bad defender from Meath, which it was, but Donegal are probably thinking it worked.
Yeah.
But the other side of it too is like when you say they pressed up against Meath yesterday, but like everyone knows Meath have a problem with the goalkeeper. So like, you know, why they're not going to press up? Like let's put Marcus Brennan under pressure straight away, and let's see can they deliver and see can you get a high press up there, turn the ball over once or twice. Like they, as I said, the good players, you know, good strong management team, clued into what they're doing. I'd say pretty easy to coach. So you know you can change up your options with the team, and they're probably, you know, having a look at what it requires on any given Sunday and they adapt to that.
Would there be, say for example, you like to play a 2-man full forward line and you like to drop everybody else behind the ball, and you know there's a disconnect there and you work it up a bit through the hands and give it in. Say you've got a gale force wind with you. Like, would managers not say, right, well, that game plan there doesn't suit that gale force wind. I actually think we'll leave 4 forwards up today because we need that option of a kick pass and we need that. Like, would managers change their tactics based on the wind? Because I get frustrated with teams not using, like, having a gale force wind is fairy tale stuff. Like, you should basically be going up 6 points up with a gale force wind like that. And the way Meath were set up and the way they played, just could never have gotten, they didn't even look like. I would like to see Meath have kicked 7 wides, but have gotten the ball down in there into a dangerous full forward line and, you know, look like, right, well, we've a gale force wind, we're going to use it.
Yeah, but I think the problem you have with the gale force wind is your shot selection, right? I don't think there was areas where, you know, Meath had a problem working the ball into certain areas. Like, made a point earlier on, like you know, 50 yards now is like the top of the D with the gale of wind you had yesterday. So an inter-county player really should be, you know, once he gets into that zone, he should be able to kick the ball from 50 yards over the bar, and that forces the opposition out to play it. So there was, you know, Donegal are never going to change. So like Donegal are always going to swarm men back. So, you know, had Meath kicked the ball into that area yesterday, handing the ball over to a team that can transition it very, very quick, right? But what I feel the wind affords you the opportunity to do is take more scoring opportunities from further out the field, where you don't actually have to be really accurate with your ball worked into certain areas. You can get fellas off the shoulder and pop. Like Donald Keoghan came onto the ball yesterday and had a great chance to kick a score and miss.
Yeah.
You know, Robin Clark came into an area and he was dispossessed. He could have got a shot off. They got a ball into a real good offensive area with Joey Wallace and he didn't get a shot away.
When you see Donald Keoghan being able to come onto a ball at pace, and he makes it look so easy, I wonder how more players don't do. You know, like, because Donald Keoghan only knows one way to go, and that's at the goals, and that's in him. Do you know what I mean? And when he takes a ball on a burst, he'll generally get past a line, and he could have a shot on. I agree. Like, he got into a good position there. I thought he could have scored, but you don't see enough players just wanting to do that.
Yeah, there's such a fine balance there, because that's the one thing managers will be saying. Like, somebody break a line, like break a tackle, go at them. But at the same time, they'll be saying, do not lose that bloody ball in the tackle. So then there's players who like Donald Keoghan where it's like, yeah, go at them. But
he's strong enough to do it.
Other people, like, get rid of it. And then, as Colin says, if you lose the ball in the tackle around the 45, it's game over.
But I think Donegal hold possession and probe, right, with a clear direction and what they're looking for and how they're going to attack it, right? As I said, they're getting people in those wide high positions, and you know the ball's going laterally, but they're waiting for that one breakdown and one move. Whereas, you know, you see teams like Louth, like Tipperary, where they're going in that U effect from the corner to the 45 to the 45 to the corner,
to the other corner,
and you're just moving around, and you're doing a hoping there's a line break rather than, you know, this is how we're going to get it. You see Donegal boys dropping out all the time for the next man up coming to change the line, where you see the other teams and they're just probing, hoping something happens inside. And I think that's the difference between the real good tuned offensive teams and the lesser teams as such, and Donegal done it so well yesterday. Yeah,
they're so natural with the ball in hand, and there's two sides of this. There's being outside a screen and trying to get through it, and then there's trying to have your attack get down the field fast enough that you don't ever face that. You know, and Donegal are good at both of those things, and that's what separates them a little bit, I think, because how Donegal were able to close down the space against the wind, and they had loads of space with the wind. Do you know, now tactically I think Meath didn't help themselves with that either, but that's the way this game went. Donegal closed all it down for Meath, and Donegal had loads of it to run into, and tactically that's where Meath got it.
Well, it was tailor made for Donegal the way it's set up, because Meath had to chase the game in the second half. Yeah. So Donegal sit back and mop it up, but the line break for, like, the support run for Ryan McHugh for the third goal was absolutely incredible. And then when you leave space, like guys like Jamie Brennan, just crucify it with his pace and his strength and his finishing ability.
Definitely. Conan, anything to add there?
No,
before we
but
move on?
it's like we're talking about these weaker teams and how they sort of break through that sort of blanket defence. And if you look at Dublin, for example, like they go in numbers. Like, it's not like, you know, Donald Keoghan, right away you go. Like, Langan followed up Ryan McHugh for that goal. They all went and hunted in packs. Dublin have a bit of a different way in that Kilkenny, Fenton, Dean Rock will come and collect the ball in a tight area, and it's so bloody tempting then when somebody's 20 yards out and they've slowed up that everybody wants to try and nail them because you think you have your chance. But then that's when the Dublin boys are flying off their shoulder and it's popped and it's over the bar. Yeah. So they're sort of attracting numbers to them, and then somebody's freed up because of that. But you have to trust that there's going to be people coming with you and not just giving it to Keoghan and thinking, right, that's it, job done.
That's the thing. And I suppose when you give a ball into a full forward line, maybe there's another element that is being recycled because there's no options for them as well. Like, you know, that where other teams have pop passes, Kilkenny was able to pop pass to young O'Brien. Is it Dan O'Brien? Yeah. And for him to score, there has to be support play up. I just think there's a fear factor of those weaker teams. There's a fear factor not to make mistakes and not to go at it and play with a bit of abandon. Like the ball,
like possession wins all day long over taking a chance and yeah. Like, to be real effective as an offensive team, you have to take chances and, you know, calculated risks. But we're not willing to take any at the lower level. You know, and that's the thing. You actually hear more groans from the crowd now when you're trying to keep possession than you would with a crossfield kick pass that doesn't go to hand. Crowd will see that you've tried to do something there, but if you're just hand passes straight back out, oh jeez, how do the players not hear that? You know, and not be a little bit embarrassed by that? Anyways, listen, give out here all the way through part 2. Right, we'll be back with Performance of the Weekend. Alright, Performance of the Weekend, and we just mentioned him at the end of the last part, Jamie Brennan. He only scored 2 points, but he was fouled for 2 penalties. He was fouled again for one that should have been a penalty,
or he's fouled for, was it the 2 penalties?
Yeah.
Yeah, him for both penalties. Then he was fouled for the free that should have been a penalty. He hit the crossbar. He scored 2 points. Like, he's a live wire. Like, he's exactly what you need. He knows no recycling. He'll only recycle at the very, very last resort. He knows taking on his man, pulling 2 men to him, and then passing. Not a recycle. You know what I mean? Passing it off or getting on the end of the move. He's magic, and it's an interesting one with him. After the provincial championships last year, he was in the running for Player of the Year, and in the Super 8s completely lost it. He looked like a very ordinary player. So I don't know why that happened or what happened to him, Colin, or whether you have any theories on that. He was flying it during the league as well, so maybe seeing him flying in the league this year, I'd be like, Jamie, pace yourself this year. We need you for the Super 8s.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a live wire.
An exciting player.
Yeah, he's always on the great finisher, great brain, aggressive into open spaces, and he'd be a dread to try and mark and come up against.
Yeah, it's an interesting one you mentioned about that, keeping that big area open, because it wasn't that one of Joe Brolly's potential changes that no forward could come inside his zone. But it does make sense that if all forwards don't occupy this space in front of goals, generally a sweeper wants to cover players rather than stand in the middle of you know what I mean? In the middle, it would probably take a while during a game for that to be copped onto, you know what I mean, for a manager on the line.
Yeah, and like if a sweeper stands there, the first thing everybody in the line is shouting, "What are you doing back there? There's no one to cover.
You're not doing anything.
You're sweeping in front of the keeper. Get the hell out, push out, put pressure on," and then that's what Donegal want, because they have Jamie Brennan and Michael Murphy powering through and they all that space in, and if they break one tackle, they're potentially 3 on goal. And and like Brennan was also the one who put Ryan McHugh away. So he had a hand.
He had a hand in that
so
goal.
Much, like,
he did.
And like when Donegal are like the team of half forwards and half backs, essentially, that's a really good system that they've devised.
When you think of the players they're missing, lads, Donegal are a serious team. There's no doubt about that. When you look at the amount of top quality players that weren't there, when you look at McBrearty, obviously McNeilish isn't there, young Gallen wasn't there,
Patrick
McGrath wasn't there, Jason McGee in midfield wasn't there. Like, they're missing an awful lot of their best players, and still able to go down, destroy Meath away. So look, they're definitely in the running. We mentioned Thomas O'Reilly. He scored that first point early, wasn't brilliant, but got 2 very good points against the wind, and a bit of an also ran corner forward, but in full forward. And like, I could never play corner forward, but I was a decent full forward. And there's a huge difference, because number one, you're not marking a specialist marker, you're marking a full back that's probably not going to mark you as tightly. So often a corner forward could get a huge lease of life. David Clifford's gone into full forward. Now he'll be marked by a specialist, you can be sure about that. But then the problem with that is that the traditional full back now has to go into the corner, so it's not an ideal thing for anybody then. So a move into full forward for a scoring forward is probably like a new lease of life.
Yeah, the first point he kicked yesterday was a stunning score where he just got it turned and kicked, and to kick 3 points from play yesterday was a big performance. And I just feel me don't have enough of those forwards, so he's crucial to them at this minute in time, with Shane Walsh and
Newman out. Newman probably gets 14 though when he comes back, I suppose, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, look, the modern game now, it's not as if, like, when you're playing two up front, it's not a case of one sits in the full forward
there's no
position and one out in
traditional
the corner.
14.
So like that's probably changed a wee bit. So
why are they all playing with 2? Why is that
they haven't
taken
got
off
3.
so much? Well, they might not have 3.
They haven't got 3.
Because it's funny, because even Kerry are playing 2. They're playing Clifford and maybe Tommy Walsh, and Geeney's actually being a player, or James O'Donoghue. Geeney goes out, and did you see the ball Geeney gave Clifford for his first point? Oh my God, how anyone couldn't score a point. It was a reverse no look kind of pass back in the field. That's you can't defend against that. But it's interesting, Kerry's desperation to play 2 inside is making James O'Donoghue or Geeney play outside, which they're not suited to. Play the 3 of them, play one slightly in front of the other. I thought maybe Geeney, Clifford with James O'Donoghue slightly in front of them.
Well, like Mickey Moran, and this is with Derry and Mayo a few years back, used to play 3 full forwards, but they were all occupying right in front of the goals, and then just they would break. I think Conor Mortimer talked about it in his book, called it the nut formation, and they were all just in pile on top of each other and then break as soon as there was a
in a little circle and break in different directions. That's an old one too. Yeah. I don't know what 3 options, and the thing about 3 is that a sweeper stand in front of 2, where a sweeper stands in front of 3. It's a lot more difficult for him to cover that area if you're breaking, into different areas. I don't know. I just think that too much teams just follow the leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
maybe it is
just a case of doing it, I suppose. Like if you're taking someone from anywhere, it's probably take someone from the highest line up the pitch where, if you're going to give anyone free men, give it them back there. I couldn't imagine anybody, like you're playing Dublin, you're not going to leave one of the Dublin half backs free. So if you're taking someone out, you're probably going to take them for your inside line. But it's doctors differ, patients die.
It's probably started with teams' desperation to bring back a sweeper, and now it's just taken off from there, right?
Yeah. But you know what? That's a good point about the sweeper, though, because imagine the Kerry full forward line. The sweeper is going to want to stand in front of Clifford.
Yeah.
But if they're all piled together, then it's harder for him to just watch Clifford. If they're spread out, he's like, right, I'll stand in front of him and let the other lads have the ball.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't know.
harder. Yeah, it's a better tactic.
But you made a very valid point there, right? The pass that Geaney played into Clifford was sensational. Excellent, right? So maybe who's gonna probe the opposition defence better? Is it James O'Donoghue and Paul Geaney, or is it Jack Barry?
Yeah.
So getting those guys in that middle third, they can probably...
They know the ball. I do find Geaney's taken on more work than I would like to see him doing it, but he knows how to give a pass. Now, you would like to see his finish was beautiful. Yeah. It was a lovely, tasty little finish. I thought just on that, tactically Mayo did the right thing when they went the man down. So they brought on Tommy Conroy, who's full of running, and they left him inside on his own. So now Merchant was standing in front with very conservative use of Merchant by Desi Farrell. Merchant's covering Tommy Conroy, who's been marked. So now Mayo have 12 against 12 all the rest of the field. Yeah. Do you know that if you're a man down, put one man in on his own, let the sweeper cover just one man. Do you know what I mean? And then you're matched up everywhere else on the field. It's actually tactically the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It does, because it negates the sweeper, because it makes it a 12v12 game until you get deep into the
exactly
Dublin.
Yeah, and then just don't kick it in that often, unless it's play more of a running game and you've got the teams evened up. So I thought that was smart. Conor McCarthy scored 4 points. We're waiting for him to step up, lads. He's got obvious class. He does it for UCD the whole time. Yeah. He's a big player in that regard, but I don't know. I think maybe Malachi's system might not have suited him. He's a smaller type of player who's very accurate, and he's not really suited to the 2-man full forward line. And then maybe in the half forward line with too much work, maybe Banty's system might release him a little bit to get the best out of his accuracy.
He's talented, and he showed that at times in the past. This isn't the first time he's popped his head up with big performances. Yeah. Like some of his scores yesterday against Tyrone were excellent. Look, he's done it in the past. He needs to do it over a sustained period of time. Maybe for whatever reasons he didn't play enough under Malachy. Maybe that was Malachy, or maybe it was Conor.
Yeah, you weren't sure where to play him. You see, when you a 2-man full forward line that he's not part of. So now he's all over the place. He's a forward that stays up in the forwards. I think Banty might be changing them slightly.
Yeah, if you watched the highlights last night, you would just assume that he was one of their main men, like the scores he was kicking. And
but he's done that in the past.
But never consistently.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. So I'd like a brilliant performance yesterday against Tyrone. I'd be holding judgment just till the end of the National League to see more performances from him.
Interesting enough, because I fancied Tyrone based on the first round results, and when you see how good Galway have been, especially should have beaten Kerry away, Monaghan did really well against them away in Salt Hill. Do you know what I mean? And then hammer Tyrone by all accounts. Tyrone, Mickey Hart said the scoreline flattered them. Monaghan looked to be going well under Banty.
Yeah,
I know it's very early again, and I'm not going to start drawing conclusions.
No, I know that, but they're very commendable, the Monaghan lads. They give it everything they have all the time, and every time they go out, you can't fault them for effort. And they've some very, very good footballers like McManus, Hughes, both Darren and Ciaran Hughes.
Carl O'Connell got a goal yesterday.
Like his support run for the goal was
and Cairns in midfield was meant to have been very good.
So like they've Beggin's a top class keeper.
Yeah.
So
Can I just say, while we're on the Monaghan Tyrone game, the Sunday game last night, it just mentioned that there were 3 red cards. And
didn't show any of them.
it
No.
cuts to David Goff giving the red card. I was like, what's it for?
Bizarre.
That would be like saying Conor McCaffrey scored a lovely point and it cuts to the umpire waving the flag and we didn't see what happened.
No, that was bizarre. They didn't show the sendings off.
Really
I don't know why. I have to compliment League Sunday though. They've upped their game big time. Outstanding stuff and concentrate. Again, this. No complaints with it whatsoever, and I would have been a critic of it down through the years. It's lively, it looks good, and they show plenty of highlights. It's actually, I would argue and say, it's better than the Sunday game was last year. Do you know what I mean? They're showing more extended highlights of games you haven't seen. The Sunday game last year, I'm sure they'll improve that this year as well. But anyway, wanted to say that Ciaran Brady was man of the match for Cavan. This was a very interesting game. A former team of yours, Colin. Westmeath they went 6-2 down and they had a man red carded after 25th minute. They were 1-11 to 8 down after 50 minutes. So they came back from 6-2 down, then they came back from 1-11 to 8 down. They outscored Westmeath 1-9 to 2 points for the remainder of the game after 50 minutes. John Heslin was sent off late. Westmeath had 3 players sin binned. So I suppose Cavan being a man down wasn't too much of a disadvantage when Westmeath go and have 3 players sin bin. So that was a huge result for Cavan, because I was actually sitting at the Armagh game looking at the start of this going, Westmeath were 6-1 up and saying to the lads, Jesus, we've get Cavan now fairly soon while their morale is really low, and now they're after having this bloody brilliant comeback, and it's a whole changed game.
Yeah, it's a tight division. That result for, if had Westmeath got out there with a win, it would have been
massive,
a massive result. And they've some players back in Paddy Holloway, Kevin Maguire, Ray Connellan. They're starting to get a strong squad together. So it would have been a little bit disappointing for them. But in fairness to Cavan, again they've consistently plied the trade at that level between 1 and 2 for the last couple of years. So, albeit a poor performance against Armagh last week, I was never in doubt that they were going to come back at some stage. They wouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't
it's just
see
the
them,
players they're missing. You see,
I don't see them being a Division 3 team. I really don't. But it's such a tight division. The team that needs a mention in that too. I know going different thing is Clare.
That was a great win.
Fair play to them.
Yeah, no, they've been solid as well. I mean, they've been solid Division 2
without Gary Brennan,
and Jamie Malone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Caelan Sexton got the scores in that one, the late scores, and he was away last year, so they have him back, and if Pierce Lillis playing wing back that wasn't there last year, so they are offset. They're not as good, obviously, as Brennan is a terrible loss. And
Brennan and Malone are big players.
They are. They're Division 1 players. So Ciaran Kilkenny is the last one here. There's Evan O'Carroll, obviously, we've mentioned him. Ben Brosnan, we've mentioned him. Ciaran Kilkenny's 2 matches for Dublin, 2 man of the matches. There's not much this fella can't do. He never stops. This fella could do anything for you. He actually could. He could play full forward and be brilliant. He can play centre forward. He can play as a working half forward who wins kickouts. He can track. He's an engine. He can kick off both feet. Is there anything that he can't do on a Gaelic? He can catch over his head. We saw that with the mark last week, and he wins kickouts. Is there any flaw or weakness now that he's obviously taken this kind of negative possession-based aspect to his game, where he was too fond of passing it sideways or backwards? Now that he's aggressive and he's a forward-looking player, he is unreal.
I remember watching him in Crewe Park against the Mayo, the Mayo semi-final last year, and he was tracking Jeremy O'Connor all the way into cornerback, and he had his hand on him, and he would just look like a classic cornerback. And I thought, right, he actually can do every single thing.
He's played wing back
on the pitch.
He's played wing back for them when they needed an extra for. And do you know what he is? There's a bit of a bully about him on the field too. He's not on the field to make friends.
No.
Do you know, none of the Dubs are, to be fair, that much. But Kilkenny doesn't want to be anybody's buddy on the field. He can be cynical when he wants. He's a winner. I don't know. I've turned from being very frustrated by him to back loving him again.
Oh, yeah, but that's a scary thing. I think some of the reason there might have been frustrations about him over the last few years was that we all knew how good he was, and now it's actually frightening that he's just deciding to take men on now whenever he wants to, because he'll beat anybody.
Yeah, he's built like a bull as well, isn't he?
Yeah, what people probably fail to forget is when he started coming onto the scene first as a minor and under 21, I had the pleasure of coming up against him, managing Loudon in an under 21 Leinster final, and at that stage he was a scoring machine.
Yeah,
he was an inside forward that was an absolute scoring machine as a minor, as a 21, and probably developed a different phase to his game where he became Dublin's link man, for want of a better word. He was the go-to man. He was safe with possession. He made a lot of things happen, but the scoring end of his game probably drifted off a bit. But he's proven in this last couple of weeks now he ticks all the boxes. He's a physical specimen. He's always giving. He's always making the right decisions on the ball, and he's starting now to get his scoring tallies back up, which is scary for the rest of the teams out there.
Yeah, no, definitely was. So performance of the weekend, I think we're going to give it to Jamie Brennan. He only scored 2 points, but Christ almighty, how much damage can you do outside of 2 points in a match? Absolutely unmarkable. So yeah, Jamie Brennan, I'm sure not for the first time this year, is performance of the weekend. So that's it from us. We'll be back on Thursday and we'll preview next week's round of league games. So we'll talk to you then. Good luck.